What's up, baby bards? I'm Ann Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge around these here parts, and you've made it. You've made it here to Hearthsinger Games. Here on this channel, I make tabletop RPG-focused videos and product reviews. I give my tips for running and playing games like Dungeons & Dragons and Starfinder, and of course, I tell a few stories from my own adventures at the table. Like you've been crying a lot is definitely the look for Strahd. And if you stick around long enough, you might hear me burst into song. And don't you dare look away. 'Cause I need you to know I'm gonna go bag that arc fay. Atlas can rest his weary bones. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun, wandering free. Wish I could be part of that world. What would I give? Make that you will hear me burst into song. You might also recognize me from over on Twitch, where I embrace the spirit of adventure. Okay. You know who's not gonna go first? The wizard. Oh God! Terror. The little like thing sticking. Oh my God! There is this lucid right there. Oh God! Oh, where do I go? Where do I go? Where do I go? Oh, God! This is fine. This is fine. This is fine.
And aren't you supposed to, like,
you know what?
And shit?
Okay, put your little mouth away. Put your little mouth away! Let the existential dread creep in. What can I say? I'm a girl who wants to decorate her fake world because she has nothing else to live for. Did I say that out loud?
Away we go.
And roll some dice in some tabletop RPG actual plays.
Do you want to be defined as just identifying things all the time?
No.
How's it feel? How's it feel?
Bad. You make me feel bad. I feel bad.
I also like stars.
Stars are
Me too, says Amaruk, and she comes over and like this big wolf just shrinks down into the little like hunchy thing, like how we used to talk to kids at Ren Fair when we get down with them. He's like, me too, and it's just the biggest anime grin and sparkle eyes ever. What kind of stars do you like?
Spark twirls the ends of its whiskers.
Yeah.
All of them.
Me too. Oh my God. All in all, I spend my whole life trying to make a boatload of riveting content for you out there, the baby bards. So if any of that sounds up your alley, subscribe to my channel for weekly videos and new adventures beyond every horizon. Welcome to Hearthsinger Games, where I live my quest life. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hearthsinger Games. I'm Ann Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge round these parts. Today, I'm joined by Steven. Now I'm embarrassed. Pew? Is it
Yeah,
Pew?
it is Pew. Yeah. Pew,
I
pew,
guessed
pew, pew,
it. Pew, pew, pew. Exactly. That's the best way to remember it that anyone has ever come up with. Incredible. Well, welcome. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Of course.
It's nice being on somebody else's show because when we're doing,
you're responsible for nothing.
exactly. It's the best. It's the best.
Absolutely. Well, this is an Eldritch Foundry sponsored stream, as it is every Thursday when we gather around the hearth for building character. Usually we're building some sort of character in Eldritch Foundry. Today, I have handed the keys to the EF car to Steven, who will be building a character from his show, from DNA TPK, or the show is DNA TPK.
So the podcast, the podcast is...
Tell me more.
Okay, so... So the podcast itself is called Dads with Nerdy Ambitions.
Gotcha.
I am a dad. I am a nerd, and DNA just seemed like a really nice thing because my son's a nerd, and which is awesome. And I got two more. They're not old enough yet to determine whether or not they are. If I have my way, then yes. But was like, what, it's when we were making this podcast, coming up with the idea, we're like, DNA, it's not just a hobby, it's hereditary. And we really were doing this podcast and just talking about nerd culture and pop culture and how it's comprised together. And we ended up interviewing the Eldritch Foundry. And so when we did it, we sat down and I talked to Matan, and we had this great conversation. And I said, hey, hit me up anytime. And he's like, we should totally talk nerdy stuff. And I said, let's go. And then he goes, we should talk D&D. I'm like, done. He's like, we should play a game. I'm down. He's like, you guys should do a D&D show. Cool. So, I was like, all right, that escalated so much quicker than I thought it was going to. So, excuse me. And that's what we ended up doing. And
so how long have you guys been doing your podcast, like the main show?
The main show?
D&D?
About 8 months now. Yeah,
8 months.
It's not even been that long. No, it legitimately started during the pandemic. And for the TPK side, the Total Party Kill, about, I want to say 2-3 months. It's very fresh, very, very, very fresh. And that definitely takes a little bit of time and planning, a lot more than I thought it was going to. It's been a learning experience, a lot of trial and error, a lot of frustration, a lot of fun times, a lot of me calling up my brother who lives out in Colorado. I live in Connecticut, and me going, dude, what's up with this? What do I do with this? Hey, this part's not right. Here, there's this part, and him just sitting there doing this number, like, so, because he's our main editor. He's the editor for the TPK side. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, it's strange. I think a lot of podcasts were born, and a lot of creativity was born out of the pandemic. And which is not to say like we should celebrate this shitty thing that we've all experienced for so long. But I do think that there is something to be said for the fact that, we are there. I also started streaming on Twitch. I was doing other content, but I got really serious about stuff during the pandemic. And I try to keep that in mind when the days are long and the hours arduous. But yeah, I really, I'm glad that you guys were able to put together something that you enjoyed. So how long has the Total Party Kill been going on?
It's only
that 8 months.
Within that 8 months, honestly, it's probably from the initial contact and the talking with Eldritch Foundry, it's probably about 3-4 months at the very most. It really, like I said, it started as we were sitting there after the show. Matan and I were just sitting there laughing, talking about stories about characters that we've created. Like I'm not the original owner of this one, but I definitely moved it a little bit more. Was a conspiracy theory gnome that he was a bard, right? And he used a shillelagh of truth, because whenever he hit somebody with it, he would want to tell the truth because they didn't want to get hit with it again. The boomerang of coming back, and he wore it instead of, because there's no tinfoil hats, he had a tin pot on his head, and he was just like this conspiracy theory, like paranoid Scottish gnome. And
well, tell me, I guess, like, what is your style? Like, what do you? So many people go for like different styles. We talk a lot on our Friday podcast just about like how to get a table that works for you. So if people were gonna listen to Total Party Kill, is it like just a wild romp with lots of puns? Is it like dark and mysterious and super dramatic? Like, what is your style?
Very. We try to keep it more on the lighthearted side, not goofy. But we have a well balance of characters. Two of our characters who are played by Mikey and my brother Joe in the podcast, or in this campaign, are Captain Siggy and Alvin, and they're very lighthearted, happy-going characters. We haven't gotten to learn a lot about our female actress Fox. who his character is very secretive. She's more serious. And then my character is Tanakh, and Tanakh is he's not stoic, but he's very serious. He's the big brother. He's the one that's constantly had to, he looks out for Siggy, and so he's very disgruntled because he's constantly had to put up with his shenanigans. It's very role play. We very much try to keep his in character as much as possible, and so it's really nice. We have a great story that's going along. We've actually, the episode that aired last week, we had a major confrontation. So we're going to continue that into the episode, which launches on our podcast tomorrow. And
Nice.
it's released Mondays or Sunday. I know they're talking about switching it up a little bit. I can't remember, but they're for when Eldritch Foundry releases it. So we do allow the continual listeners, our dedicated listeners, to hear it a couple days early, which is kind of nice for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always nice to offer your fam, right?
Yeah.
Like the first crack,
Yeah.
lore. So one of the things that's really interesting for Eldritch Foundry about what you guys are doing is the fact that your dungeon master chose to set it in the lore that has been developed for Eldritch Foundry
Yes.
on World Anvil.
Yes.
And while you are not the dungeon master, so I don't expect you to be like, in the world of Ood, like, what do you love the most? Like, explain everything to us. But, like, what have you discovered? Like, because you guys are playing, you said, using 5th edition as a basis for the rules, but you have a lot of other stuff built on top of that.
Yes.
That's custom
Yes.
to what you're
So
doing.
which,
tell me about that.
So what's really nice is the way that there is a lot to the world of Ood. However, they've left it very open to interpretation as for homebrew capabilities. Whereas, like, in Dungeons and Dragons, you have Ravenloft, have all these different areas that it's, if you're in Baldur's Gate, it's this type of dystopian, it's this type of world. Whereas they've set up this world to where there's a lot of openness to it, which is really nice. So our campaign takes place on we'll call it a continent, but it's actually just a larger island of Zolver. And something has happened to it where there was this it's called the Gray Tear. So, like, not great, but gray. And I actually screwed this up until a couple weeks ago. And one of the things I really like is while they give you this brick and mortar, if you will, for your world, they also allow you to expand on it. I like their interpretations of certain types of races. So I like how they take on Wargas, and they take on what they call Demonborn. So instead of they have a different name, they have a different person, a little bit more personality for where their characters came from. So it's really nice to see some of those evolving in different races. And honestly, if you go into it, they have all this different stuff that you would see on in any other type of dungeon crawler type campaigning role-playing games. But honestly, I really like how they have it set up is open based for the lore.
Yeah, well, and I can't reveal too much, but in my work with Eldritch Foundry, which some of it is still shrouded in mystery,
There's always the mystery.
We will have more of this lore, and it will likely result in some cool miniatures that people can get. How? You'll have to stay tuned to find out how, because we're not quite ready to pop the lid on it. But it's really awesome that they basically hired someone back in the day to create all of this lore around Ood, and to start building it out on World Anvil, which is a really cool tool where you can like build out your homebrew setting or just notes for your campaign and stuff like that. It's a really cool tool. So if you don't know about it, go check it out, because it can be really useful as a DM to like keep your notes in more of a like diaspora format where you don't have to write them all down and just like you can like base things on where they are on a map and then click into the map and open things. You can keep character notes on there.
Yeah.
And so it's all sort of like qualitative and quantitatively stored. I think about that stuff because I work for a database company, but it's like a mixture of ways to access information. So you're not just control Fing a giant, 100 pages on your Google Doc to find your notes on a particular thing. Like you can just click right into a town and then it'll open up all the notes on that town. And
Now,
things like
I
that.
will say this.
So,
One thing we are doing in the campaign is we are expanding a little bit on the Great Worm, which is part of the lore of Ood. I'm not going to...
So tell us about the Great Worm.
I can't tell.
Can't?
So anything that you want to find out that is available is on World Anvil. The other stuff is through my GM, so I don't know, but I do know a little bit. I literally can't tell you anything. There is some information that you can find on World Anvil. The other stuff is coming through our GM, and he has been in collaboration with Eldritch Foundry, and they're constantly doing stuff. I guess they're talking back and forth, so I don't know.
So you've already said it's cool, but right now we're just hearing the words Great Worm, and it's cool, I promise. So paint me a picture of the outline of this shadow that we know as the Great Worm.
So the Great Worm itself, let me pull, because I'm going to pull up the actual information that we do know for it. Oh my gosh. So here's where I'm getting there really isn't any information. I'm going to be absolutely honest on Eldritch Foundry. It really is. But no, I'm pulling up our notes that we have for Zolver itself. So if you've listened to the actual campaign, there was in the episode 0, we actually talk about the Gray Tear. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod. Which is basically turned this island into a horseshoe. It has created a giant rift, and the oceans have filled in, and now there's pure chaos that goes on in the oceans around here. There are fanatical storms, creatures that are in some mythos are starting to pop up that are very similar. Relay might be something that we were inspired a little bit behind for our Cthulhu fans out there. And there is a temporal rift that has happened because of it. And so this has some stuff to do with the Great Worm. However, we are still, we've only recorded 5 or 6 episodes right now. We are in episode 3. 4 is coming out tomorrow. So I can't tell too much of what I know because I don't want to spoil stuff.
Do you guys record as you release, or did you sit down and record a bunch of episodes all together and now you're editing them?
Typically we record 2 episodes. Actually, every Thursday, we record a couple episodes. Then we do what's called Tavern Talk. So Tavern Talk is we sit down after the episodes and we sit there and we talk about what was going through our minds, and it's really great. And so that's something we've done, especially for our Patreon listeners. So this is something that they get to go, so they get to get a little bit more behind the scenes. So we talk to a little bit to our GM. Most of the time we kick him out of the room or off the server and everything, and we go, okay, now we can talk crap. And we'll sit there and we go, all right, so I'll talk to Joe, he was playing Siggy, and in episode 1 he was trying to roll and hide on the ground, but he failed. And so I was sitting there, I'm like, dude, what was going through your mind when you did that? And he's like, dude, I was trying to be cool and just like James Bond it. And I'm like, you ran into a table. And he goes, yeah, that kind of did happen, didn't it?
It did happen.
And,
well, let me ask you, is this your first foray into actual play, or have you done actual play podcasts before?
Podcast wise, this is my first. This was never an intention for the DNA. I had no intentions ever actually doing a D&D based role-playing in general podcast. My podcast, my brother and our podcast was designed originally as informative. We were sit down and talk to the gurus of their areas. So case in point, I had a couple comic book collectibles shop owners on, and we were talking about how you do these things and to pique people's interest, because there are lots of podcasts that are specified on different things. If I want to go listen to somebody talk about Marvel, there's a podcast about that. DC, there's a podcast. Star Wars, everybody has one. There's no one podcast, with the exception of us, that I've discovered really that goes in and collaborates everything into one, where we know some things, but we know there are lots of other people that know other things, and they love coming to us to talk about their stuff. So they don't have to do the work. We get to do it. So we had like the Mandalorian Mercs come on, talk about Star Wars. I had the wonderful, beautiful Amanda Raymond. She is a director and producer. She came on the show, and we were talking about the cinematography of WandaVision. So it's stuff that like I would never have thought about as a nerd or as a person. And I get to get these outside perspectives, and I learned so much, and the listeners learn so much, and I learned it's fun. It's a blast.
And for your sort of Venn diagram of all the stuff you are interested in, where does D&D fit for you? Would you describe it as like something that's newer, or something that you've done for a while? Or?
So D&D has always been a passion of mine. I've been mostly a closet D&D gamer for the longest time. You know, I'm 34, and I know when I was younger, D&D was really, like, even being a nerd was frowned upon. It was shunned. It was very ridiculed. And we constantly bring this up on the show. We are living in the golden age of nerd culture, of pop culture, collaborating, the fan fiction, the fandoms that are out there. And whether or not you want to think it's, you know, it's Marvel, if it's Warner Brothers, if it's Disney, we're living in this golden age, and I'm going to milk it for all it's worth, because this is something I've embraced for a long time. And now I get to just flourish in this beautiful world of nerdom. And so I've definitely gone out of my way to make sure I do a lot more. So I help out with my son's Cub Scouts. We actually are going to be doing D&D with them. So they get to learn about and I sat down and I talked to the parents, and I talked to, you know, everybody else. I was like, hey, how do you feel about this? And they're like, we don't know a lot. I said, well, it's improv with mathematics and a little bit of acting. And they're like, oh, is there monsters? Yeah. What do they do? Usually punch them. Sometimes you can talk to them. They talk back. Absolutely. All the time. And so it's, and then looking at it from an artistic point of view. So I don't know how well this is going to come out, but this is a custom miniature that I took from a various couple pieces. And this is actually in the game. This is my brother's, because he's an artificer or artificer. I always screw up the word.
Artificer.
Yeah. So he makes a walking cannon. So the cannon is named Nick the Cannon. Nick Cannon.
Nice.
Nick Cannon. Yeah. So he thinks he's so.
So you're a miniature painter as well.
I am a commissioned artist as well. I am a jack of all trades, master of none. I do a lot. I try to, just because, you know, painting was always a thing that helped de-stress me. So it was one of my zen. And then eventually people was like, hey, can you do this? And I was like, yeah, can you pay for the paints? And then eventually people are like, hey, paint this. And I'm like, all right, pay me to do it. And here we are. And that was actually the first milestone for the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
So
do you guys play using a virtual tabletop, or do you guys play with real terrain? Or
we use everything and anything, mostly because of the pandemic right now. It's typically all virtual stuff. However, we do have physical things. But here's the other thing too. My team is all over the United States. Fox is in Ohio. My brother's in Colorado. Mikey is in Indiana. TK, I'm not sure where TK is. I don't know where TK lives. Hey, TK doesn't matter. He's just the GM, whatever. And I live in Connecticut.
Not important.
No, he's not important at all. No, he'll just, you know, he's just going to TPK my character next episode.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's fine. Well, speaking of your character, we should show people what he looks like so that you can have a really clear image in your mind before he perishes.
So that's a great thing.
Get started.
Because you can visualize. The cool thing about Eldritch Foundry is I actually, well, you can use it to obviously make miniatures and 3D print your own miniatures or order a 3D printed miniature through them. I think the best use of this sort of system is to show character creation. It helps me visualize a character every time I want to put one together. And the cool thing is Eldritch Foundry releases new updates every single month. And this month we've had new base designs. Well, not new, they were in the Kickstarter, but now they're available to everyone and not just the Kickstarter backers. We have conditional bases so that you can mark whether you're poisoned or you're prone or you're stunned or any number of things on the base. And then there's also a bunch of May the 4th options. Which, as you can see, I am a large May the 4th supporter in this house. But there are lots of May the 4th inspired options on there as well for your sci-fi campaign needs. But we're going to dive in. So who is this character? Tell me more.
So getting Tanakh. So we got to do our voice very serious here because Tanakh, Tanakh's serious. For the most part, he has to deal with Ziggy, so he's just... constantly
he just needs to count it backwards from 10
a
lot.
He may have a bottle of ale or liquor every once in a while. He starts his morning off because he knows he's gonna have to deal with Siggy and something stupid that he's doing. So Tanakh is a dwarf. And so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go find our dwarf, and here we are.
Man, I've never played a dwarf.
I love playing dwarves. Dwarves are just they're actually me and my brother's go-to for most races. I like them because I typically use them as like the brick house. They're the paladins, they are my fighters. But he actually makes
a dwarf house.
He makes
what I have to say about that.
So Tanakh is a little bit, he is your height wise, so let's go.
Now, this is important because I've built a lot of femme-based characters lately because that's my characters are primarily femme. But I haven't had a chance to play around with beards, so let's talk about beards.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options for your beard. So you go in. His beard it's a typical dwarven beard. Actually, is that the one I wanted to go with? No, this. Oof. So yeah, you got a couple different beards. This is actually
very WoW vibes. That last one, very WoW vibes.
So I was actually gonna rock this mustache, and my wife told me absolutely not. So I did.
Oh, you as a person?
I did. I actually have a picture for a little bit where I had it, and I sent it to her, and she wasn't a fan.
Yeah, know-it-all Psy Guy in chat is saying, "Yay, Indiana!"
Yeah, Indiana represent.
That is the hometown. Know-it-all is in my Descent into Avernus game, and we are literally about to go directly into hell, and I'm very excited about it.
Yes.
That time will come. You know, I should probably build my Water Genasi cleric on this. Maybe next week I'll do that, because she's a very strange person.
Tanakh has a little bit of hair on his head. Yeah,
nice.
I like to think he. So the background story of Tanakh is because dwarves live for a long time, and I had to redo my math. But for 140 years, which is the typical till adult life of a dwarf, he was a part of this cult, the cult of Zaire, which is a cult that worships a cerebolith, which is a like psionic demon. And I actually painted a miniature, so while I'm building this, I will grab him. I don't know if, as I hit my thing. So this is a cerebrolith.
Whoa.
So it is a nasty demon that is like all about psionic abilities, and which is
why he do this? Why he worshipped this?
He was born into the cult, and one of the signs.
I'm not bad. I was just born this way.
Well, no, he was never. So this is all he ever knew for the first 140 years of his life. This is all he knew, and one of the signs of, and want to say one of the signs like, hey, this might be a bad thing, is they actually plucked out one of his eyeballs and gave it as a sacrifice, as a token of appreciation to Zaire, and. So
that's
he had no eye, and so he was really mad about that, like upset about that.
So are we able to create that here?
We are, and so if you look at my character right now, let's go to his eyes, or actually head. Where's it at? Eyes. So right now they have the robotic eye option. So if you look, I have given him a robotic eye. This is actually kind of where Captain Siggy comes into play. So Siggy's character created me a new eyeball.
This is the artificer.
This is yes. So he is Captain Siggy One-Eyed. Even though he has 2 eyes, he wears a patch to cover his eye because he thinks that's more piratey.
I get it.
Think like
You always be branding.
yeah, he is all about the branding. So he's not really good at a lot of things, and he constantly screws up stuff. Luckily, he didn't screw up the eyeball and it didn't explode. However, whenever I use a psionic ability, it kind of does this cable thing where it glows a white light and everything. So it gives off letting you know that, hey, I'm about to do some psionic abilities. So I can use that as like an intimidation thing. So
Now, do you find do you guys focus when you're playing your game on making sure that you're using a lot of descriptors, because you're not, there are lots of shows that are doing actual plays on Twitch, and therefore they can rely on a lot of visual humor, visual descriptions. Do you guys think about that actively when you're recording a podcast?
Yes and no. Typically, we get into our character. We delve into our character, and we go into full-blown acting mode. So it's almost like we go on the same concept of like, you remember don't you remember? You remember listening to the radio stories? But you know of radio stories. So that's really how we delved into it, because we want people to listen and think that they are actually listening to a story. They can visualize this stuff that's happening. We have a great DM.
Yeah.
TK is great at describing the scenes, and as the actors, we just kind of go with the flow. We go with how he leads us. And I actually cheated when I was building him. The last time I built him, I went ahead and used a torso where is it at? So because he is like I said, he was in this cult for a long time, and so the last 20 years of his life he's been on the run, which is where he ended up actually meeting Siggy, and he built him his eye, and they became comrades. And he has a lot of trust issues. He has a lot of trust issues for obvious reasons, and he's looked out for Siggy because Siggy looked out for him. And so they have this so he calls them in Dwarven, he calls them Zandur, which is actual Dwarven for brother. And Siggy's character, or Joey's character, Siggy, actually knows how to speak Dwarvish. And so in parts of the story, or in the actual podcast, we'll actually speak Dwarven to each other. So we have little phrases that we'll speak, and then we'll transition into English, so everybody else can understand. So they know we're starting off in this thing, and we let it flow into English that we're talking. Or sometimes we'll just say, hey, we're talking to Dwarvish if we want to just make it go by quicker. And then once we started this story, actually when we were starting with the other characters, we brought them into play. Sorry, I'm trying to do this, build a character while also
you're totally fine. I totally get it. Well, let me ask you something that's less complicated. Do you so that you can choose it out?
Hey, I know you're struggling there.
Let me help you, Steven. Let me ask you. Do you guys edit in ambiance? Like, how much is edited? Do you just roll through, or how long are the episodes?
So typical episodes, and this is how Eldritch Foundry wanted to do them, is they want to try to keep it around driving distance back and forth. So we try to keep them around an hour long, which it seems like, wow, that's a really little time, but we make it work. We make it delve into where you're getting a proper story, and because we're doing it on a weekly basis, it doesn't make it you don't lose track of what's going on. So we'll do 3 episodes a month where they're around an hour, and then we do a 4th episode where it's a longer episode, and that's typically just to round up, as well as at the end of the month we talk about various things that we've done with our characters, as well as anything that we've seen on Eldritch Foundry websites that we go in and talk about their stuff. And
that's
then
fun.
Yeah.
Well, and so one thing that while you're creating, I can take the reins here from you for a second. I think, as someone who makes a lot of actual play content on the interwebs, there's this feeling of like, we gotta be Critical Role. Like, we gotta be these people who've been doing it forever. And the truth is, like, everyone should try to be their own thing. Everybody should express their own table. That's what makes us all so special. And I think there's a lot to be said for consumable content that you can finish in, you know, an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And yeah, I think that that's really important for people to remember, that like that is valid. And if you do that, it allows you to go in and edit in those ambient noises and music and all the, like, edit out conversations that aren't germane to the plot or something that wasn't funny. You know, we do that all the time on Lost Mountain Saga, which is the Nordic horror podcast that I'm on with Eleanor DiLorenzo and Sydney Emanuel from over. We all met over on the Glass Cannon Network, and it's really awesome. Like, I love, as a person who was in those recording sessions, I love sitting down and knowing that we're trying to tell enough story within an hour that we don't sit around and talk about useless things.
Yeah.
I mean, although we did talk about queefing for like probably way longer than was necessary the last time we played, and it's all in there, so make sure you tune into our latest episode. I'll throw it in chat for anybody who wants to check it out. But we do, for the most part, have that timeline in mind, and that makes it very different from when you're just playing, you know, within the hobby itself. You know, you're kind of just playing with your friends and seeing where the story takes you, and all of that's valid. But it is kind of interesting when you have a time limit and you're like, we have to make a climax of some kind happen in the next hour.
So it typically takes us about 8 hours to edit 1 hour of video or of audio, and we put in music in the background, we put in sound effects. We go very much into as much detail as we possibly can without, you know, knowing that too much, just making sure we don't put too much in, there is a minimal. It
supports the story rather than being the story.
Yes. And we enjoy it. We have a blast with it. After every episode, we're sitting there giggling and laughing and having a good time, talking about like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And what I really like about it is what makes I enjoy about doing this is, to an extent, there is some script to it, because we have to know, okay, hey, this is how we have an idea of what the intentions of our plans are. Each character, with the exception of my character, who has no plan, he's just following around Siggy, they have their own personal mission. Now, what we're doing on the island, so we're going to an island in this right now, and making sure we have those plans. We go in there, and then we dice gods be damned and see where they go, and we bounce with it and make sure our characters, we play off of our characters. Now, the entire time, we try to stay as much in character as possible. Now, when we talk and ask them a question, I'm like, hey, quick question for you. How many doors are there around me? And he goes, there's 3. All right, I'm taking the left one then. So it's a blast.
I think a lot of times, I call it the fuck it, it's a one-shot drive, that I try to take that element of how most people that I've encountered play in one-shots, which is they finally do the brave thing, they make big choices, they take risks, because they're like, screw it, like, if this character dies, I might never play them again anyways, so it's fine. And I think taking those impulses that you would actually have in a survival situation and forcing them into your long-term campaigns makes the stories a lot more interesting when you're less precious about, how much time and energy you've put into a character, and really let your character be the story as it's happening. And I think that can be a really hard thing to do, because obviously so many people are very attached to their characters. And I say this, and I just want to be very clear that, like, I don't do this and my characters aren't like dying constantly because of this. But I think a lot of people get analysis paralysis, and it causes people to, like, sit around and discuss what they need to shop for like an hour, or not be able to make a decision about how you're going to face the big bad, when, like, ultimately you can only plan so much.
Yeah.
Like, you can only plan so much. At some point, you need to come up with like a basic thing, and if things go south, maybe a secondary plan. But mostly, you just got to go do it. You got to make a choice and do it. And I think actual play podcasts are an element that trains people how to make those decisions.
It does.
Sometimes.
It does. I enjoy it doing this because doing it as a podcast, it is completely different from regular D&D. I try to stay as much in my character as possible. So my character is a rogue. He's a thief. We're not bad guys. I don't go out of my way to intentionally murder people unless, you know, they're trying to kill me. However, I'm not a nice guy.
Hey, you tried to kill me first, man.
Well, in an incident, a gentleman decided to give me a skunked bottle of wine. And, well, Tanak's not having that. So Tanak has some psionic abilities. He is able to communicate with them. So I knew the bottle of wine was skunked, made a telepathic connection to this guy. And so I'm talking to him and I'm going, I know you gave me bad wine. You have no idea how much you just screwed up. You're going to look over at us. You're going to give us new wine. And then you're say you're sorry. And then you're going to walk away. And then he did. The character freaked out, you know, rolled an intimidation. And then because of how the ability worked, I had a psychic connection to this kid or this character for 6 hours. So, well, what am I going to do? I've only used like 30 seconds of it. So throughout the game, I would just randomly talk to this guy in his head, and I would just sing this. I would sing Baby Shark, and I would do it as slow and as dark. It's like Baby Shark, do 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 do, baby. And unfortunately, he ended up like killed. The character jumped off the side of the ship because he went insane and everything. So, wasn't my intention, but you know.
Well, listen, sometimes you make some choices. And
I'm not I don't play. Yeah, we try to stay meta, and I say that with air quotes, as much as possible without being. We don't want to be murder hobos, not even in a little. But we want to try to stay what our characters are. Joe's character Siggy and I are thieves. We are opportunists. Alvin is this. Mikey's character is a sweet, adorable rock gnome with an intelligence of like 5. And
oh boy,
he's
did you guys roll your scores?
We did. And so I'll actually bring up my stat sheet because my stat sheet is redonkulous. And I even talked to our GM about it, and I said, hey, I did too good. Do you want me to re-roll it? And he goes, well, no, you've been raised by a cult to be a soul knife assassin. This is probably pretty accurate. So, you know, like as a dwarf, I have a strength 15, dexterity is 18, constitution's 18, and intel is 17, 13 on wisdom. 2
+ 4 mods right there.
Yeah. And now, because we just leveled up to level 4, I played as my character because I'm constantly looking over my shoulder for this cult to trying to get me back into to bring in this cerebrolith. I gave him the ability Alert. And we're actually going to talk about it in the next episode. So Alert gives me a +5 to my initiative. So I now have a +9 to initiative. And, you know, it's really hard to sneak up on me and stuff like that. Like, I don't get surprised, which is really very meta for how my character would be. So we tried we sat down, we discussed every time we leveled up, we sat as a group and we said, okay, do you think my character would do this? Do you think this is how my character go? It wouldn't make sense for my character personally, I think, to have gone with the heavy armor expert. You know, it wouldn't have made sense for him as a rogue, as someone who's very paranoid. Like, even my background, I went with Haunted One. So when we were developing
what's your haunted object?
I think it's I don't remember what I gave me as a haunted object. I think I can't.
Hard seg. But before the show, we were discussing ghosts and how I'm the same person who fears them. And Steven is a crazy person who likes to play Phasmophobia because he's broken inside.
I do.
And not only this, but he plans to spend the night in a haunted insane asylum in Connecticut.
Well,
tell us more. Terrify me to my core.
Okay.
Go.
So there's a couple different options right now. I'm looking and talking to about 20 different people. So on the podcast, so we cover all aspects of nerd culture and pop culture, or nerd culture, and you know, and so ghosts. Everybody has a ghost story. Everybody I know either A, has been to a place that has a ghost, or has something where they were sitting in the car and the car wouldn't start and they were in the graveyard. Like it's in. I'm a sadist,
yes, but
I guess.
I'm saying I can't do it.
I'm sadistic.
You're so brave.
And so one of the episodes we're going to be doing in the near future is when I say I am at a minimum am going to,
because no one else is crazy enough to do this with you.
because my brother lives in Colorado, he would definitely be down.
well-
And Mikey lives in Indiana, and he said he would come down in a heartbeat if his work allowed him. But
Oh my god. This is
I
terrible.
will do it by myself. I have no quarrels with doing it by myself. Now, everybody I know says you're absolutely insane. Let me know when you're doing it.
Have you ever done ghost hunting before?
Never have I done ghost hunting. I've been on ghost tours. I've been to some really cool places. Spent a week in Gettysburg, which is
Have you had an experience?
I don't know. I there's
What
been
does that mean?
That means there's moments that I have a very active imagination, which is great for doing D&D. However, it's a double-bladed sword. So.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, like, did I make that up? Did I want to see that on some level? Was it a trick of the light? Like, I get that because I too suffer from an outrageous imagination and a fear of ghosts, and those two things, like a fear, but that is also a fascination. Like, if I start watching a ghost show, I have to finish watching it so that I seal in the experience, because otherwise my brain will continue to relate to whatever I've seen, whether it's a ghost show or like a horror movie that features ghosts. Like, there are certain things. I remember watching The Conjuring and being like, why have I done this to myself? Because now I have to finish this movie, but I am terrified. And then I started to watch Annabelle because I'm fascinated by the Warrens. You know the Warrens, who, like, the actual people. So they have this museum of like haunted objects and possessed objects and all this stuff. And I'm really fascinated by them as people and their whole history. I believe they consulted on the Amityville horror situation. I believe I might be misremembering that. In any case, they're really fascinating people, and those people are the people that the Conjuring characters were based on. But they are real people, and I wanted to watch Annabelle because I've heard the Warrens be interviewed about Annabelle. And I was like, I can watch this. It's a fake movie. I got 5 minutes in and I said, this is the cutoff. It's like Samwise Gamgee. If I take one more step, it's the furthest from home I've ever been, and I'm gonna have to go put the ring in Mount Doom. Like, that's where we are. So I turned it off because I was like, I think it was like a scene where two girls were in a bedroom and Annabelle or Annabeth or whatever her name is got out of the closet by herself, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. This doll is haunted. That is a fiction. That is a fictional film. It is not a documentary, but in my mind, it was the truth.
Oh,
it was.
I can't do it. Like, so there's certain ones like demon possession movies.
Mhm.
I can't.
No,
I can't.
No. Yes, you and me both. Same.
Now I will say this. So, like, where was I going? I live in the town. I live in Southington, Connecticut. Please don't stalk me. But this town has a lot of places that are based off of, or movies are based off of. So the movie A Haunting in Connecticut is based off of and the people are very nice. The people that live there, God bless them, live in this house. It is a house in Southington, and it is knowing the history of it is absolutely terrifying. I can't believe it that somebody would actually live there.
Let's take it back here, because I want to ask you a question, because you said you're talking to 20 different places.
Mm-hmm.
What is your criteria for the most hellish experience you can create for yourself for good TV, quote unquote?
Honestly,
what is
really,
your plan?
My plan is to go with the scariest one there is. Like, if I'm able to get, so there's two hospitals and there is an insane asylum, and my goal is to go to the absolutely gut-wrenchingest terrifying one.
What is this insane asylum? What is the where is
So
it?
there is. I have to look up the. Actually, let me grab my phone
So,
real quick while
you look
yes.
this up, I watch a show and I'm going to recommend it to you all.
Oh, snippety snip.
It is called Haunt Me. It is a YouTube channel, and they do investigation, documentary, stuff like that. But you know, it's keep in mind that like I get that there's always a question with reality TV and things like that, like how much is created, like, and even just what we were talking about with imagination and stuff playing a huge role. What my favorite thing is about these investigators is that they're hobbyists, they're young, and they're doing it on their own, and the production value is really high for what they're doing, and they're based in Maine, so the show is called Haunt Me because it's Maine, haunting area, basically primarily, and then they start adventuring into other places as time goes on. But I like that they focus not just on science and fact, but there are people there who focus on metaphysical as well, and where that is, they accept that that is a part of the process, and they attack it from all ends. And I think that that's really unique because so many of the shows that have existed on television, like Ghost Hunters and Paranormal State, those are the top two that I can think of. Paranormal State would bring in psychics and be like, we're gonna have our psychic. Like sometimes it was Elizabeth Warren, not Elizabeth Warren. God, is that her name? What is her actual name? Warren. Annabelle Museum.
Well, while you're looking that up, do you want me to?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so these three places, now, they're not somewhere that like regular Joe Schmoes and you and I can just go to. We had, like, this stuff has to be planned, they have to be talked to, and that you have to get made, like, absolute 100% permission and sign waivers, and it has to be for something significant. It can't be just for, like, hey, I want to go stay in a haunted house. So, like, one of them is the Norwich State Hospital. Another one is the Seaside Sanatorium in Connecticut, which is outside of Waterford. And another one is the Fairfield Hills State Psychiatric Hospital in Newtown, Connecticut.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I said, these aren't places that you can typically just go, hey, I'm going to walk in here and be
and
good.
Just do whatever you... Yeah.
But
it's Lorraine Warren, by the way, not Elizabeth Warren. I was just on autopilot there. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Is the other thing about some of these older buildings is some of them aren't like taken the best care of.
No,
like
they're
it's very
absolutely.
dangerous. It's not dangerous for haunting reasons. It's dangerous for like the floor might cave in, or there are there could be the most dangerous thing on an investigation is often other people, like people who are taking up residence in these places or squatting or stuff like that. So
typically what's going to happen if I do go to one of these bigger ones, I will have somebody with me, at a minimum one other person, because for safety reasons. Because like I said, and then there's also, you have to worry about, there's asbestos, there's lead, there's the integrity of the places. So but if I do end up doing it by myself, it's probably going to be more on a much more tamed down place, like if it's a house or something of that sort. I don't plan on getting any sleep, because regardless of how I feel, whether or not the place really is, I are a scourge, and I don't plan on, case in point, I played Phasmophobia. Nobody was in the house.
That was a bad decision. You made that decision.
I did. I made an adult decision.
Sorry, I don't mean to scold you. You're just crazy.
I made an adult decision. I made an adult decision. I am absolutely.
This is not okay what you plan to do, Steven.
I know.
I hate it. But I love it for you, and you guys should go and follow the podcast so you can listen to it. I am going to have to listen to that episode at least. Okay, let's finish up this miniature because we're coming to the end of our show here.
I finished him up as much as possible.
He's done.
He's a minimalist. So the only thing with the daggers is you won't actually, when it comes to psionics with soul knives, you don't see the knives. I see the knives and I see where I throw them. but nobody else sees them. So in my
Now,
mind, they glow purpley, and they're really
the
sick.
psionic stuff was never actually. It's in Unearthed Arcana,
It's
but it was never.
It was Tasha's Cauldron.
Oh, it wasn't. Oh, it is. It is in
Yes.
Tasha's Cauldron. Do you feel that it is OP?
No.
Okay.
Here's my reason. Nothing can be OP'd. Now, you can try to think you're going to make it OP, but here's the thing. Your DM, your GM, whatever you want to call them, is God. He has unlimited say, or her. They have unlimited say in no matter what happens. So I am a soul knife rogue. I use psychic abilities. All right, you just bring in something that's immune to psychic damage. I become absolutely useless, and I sit there and I go, "Hey, high five, guys. Good luck to you, sir." There's no if you are, and that's tough. That comes on the DM. If the DM is capable of saying, "Hey, I can handle this no matter what you come up with," you're good. Like, I have a +9 to my initiative. All right, I might go first, but I'm going to clunk something, and that's it. Rust monsters are great for, going against people who have tons of awesome weapons. All right, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
There's always an answer to everything. So no, in my mind, nothing can be OP. You can think you're doing it, but it can't be. It's almost impossible.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
And you must believe it because you heard it on the internet. Yeah. Well, I mean, so why Soul Knife? Like, what attracted to you about the psionic ability?
Honestly, I thought it was different. I've never done any of the psionics. They're brand spanking new. It's something that a lot of people haven't seen. And I wanted to try something that surprised me. And I've been very surprised about some of the things he can do. I'm still learning. I think I've made some mistakes, and we gone with it and we go, okay, well, here we go. This is how we fix it. Or we evolve the character based on that. We don't have to follow these rules to a key, as long as our DM GM is content and he has overall say. I like the idea that I don't have to have a weapon. I don't have to carry on a rapier. I don't have to carry around my daggers. I have these weapons that I can use, and in the early game, they're going to be really great. And I always have a magical weapon, so I'm golden there. I like the ability, his later on abilities that he can do. Like, he can throw one of the knives, and he can teleport to that area.
Yeah.
I like that I have, because I'm a rogue, I have really good, ability check abilities. So I have a +8 to my stealth. I have a +6 to my sleight of hand. So I have all of these good abilities.
Being a skill monkey is never wrong, which is why I always play a bard.
I like playing paladins.
The only class.
Actually, if my character dies, I will be making a paladin. And he's not going to be...
Paladins are great.
Or not a paladin, I'm sorry, a bard, like you just said. I will be doing a bard.
Bards are also great.
Bards are great.
10 out of 10. If it's not a charisma class, I can't play it. Like, that's just the sad truth of it. That's not true. I played a druid in Storm King's Thunder for 3 years, and she died, and she was the best, and I loved her. But that is the wisdom-based character that I play. Even if I play a character who's got a stronger ability than charisma is almost always the second highest stat that I choose. And I think it's because I enjoy the political intrigue and conversation part of the game so much that if I don't want to have to rely on my DM being like, you know what, that was convincing. You don't have to roll. You know what I mean? And then there's the other side of that where, you have people who want to be a charisma class but don't fancy them a verbal artiste. And they, want to make sure that there are roles for every conversation because they feel they need it to express the power of their character. I mean, however you want to play is fine.
I like flipping my characters sometimes. Case in point, I had a barbarian who's named Taco the Warlock, Takko. So, but he was very egotistical, very he wasn't narcissistic, but he was a kobold. So he was really small, and he thought he was huge, and he always referred to himself in the third person, and he always called everybody by their full name, which I was thankful nobody had a really long name. Intimidated by Taco the Warlock. But it was fun. So it just like swapping up the you dumb barbarian hit smash. Like, he hit smashed, that was his answer, but he did it very fondly, almost like Drax the Destroyer.
I think I had somebody say you don't play your character like they have a -1 intelligence, and I was like, have you noticed that she's not she's smart about the way that people are. She's not. She didn't crack a book in the monastery. She didn't do it. She punch and she teleport via shadow, and she ninja, and she will cut you because she knows what you're gonna do before you're gonna do it. But I don't think you need to. I know that there are some people who believe they have to like really cut down on their own. Like, I have somebody in a game who will be like, well, would my character know to do that because I'm really smart, but would they be able to strategize? And well, listen, your fun isn't wrong, do whatever you want, but for me, I'm just like, that's part of the game is like figuring out puzzles.
Yeah.
So if I've figured out a political puzzle or I've like put lore together that I think is interesting, I would rather, as Anne, it's more fun for me to be able to express that as my character than hold back because I feel like my character is big dumb.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not something I do. I certainly will have, like, I always want to roll for knowledge of things I don't know, but if it's stuff that's come up in the game already that my character knows about, like, I will allow them to, like, red string theory as much as they want. But yeah, how do you feel about that stuff?
You know, I tell people, play your characters. Your character sheet is set up for however you want to set it up. This is the general basis. The only thing that character sheet is designed for is really for when you do your rolls, and it gives you a general outline of how you want to do your character. Even I look at the alignments. When people say, "Oh, I have to be chaotic neutral" or "I have to be chaotic evil," no, you don't.
Yeah.
It's just a general setup for like, okay, this is how it helps me delve into my character, especially when you're role playing. If you're not role playing a character and you're just, hit smash, then don't worry about the stats. Just worry about your numbers. But if you're looking to play your character a little bit and get a little more meta, then this will help be the stepping stones, the milestones you need to become your character.
Well, the thing that I've brought it up a lot on our Friday podcast Around the Hearth, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Tune in. But you can't play like in theater. Like, you can't play a state of being. You can't play sad. You can't play angry. You might be angry as a result of trying to do something and failing, but I can't just play angry. Then I'm just yelling, and that doesn't actually mean anything. What you need is to create an objective that is opposed by whatever the DM or the GM or the storyteller is bringing to the table to thwart you. If you create strong objectives for your character, you don't need to say I'm, lawful neutral, or I'm, chaotic good, or whatever you've chosen to be. You can't really play those things. Now, if it's a tool that helps you imagine like the type of laissez-faire attitude your character might have, then by all means. But I find that for players who have a hard time, when I'm on the other side of the table as a GM, when a player is expressing to me like, I just don't know how to like be in character, I often find after talking with them between sessions that it's because they don't have a goal.
I agree.
So I have
and it doesn't have to be
answer
a difficult goal either.
No, it doesn't have to be like a 10-page backstory goal. It could just be to find my mother. It could be to be appreciated for once. It can be on any level you want to put it. And you can make it, simple, and that will lend itself to front story and allowing you to develop relationships at the table and develop backstory as it comes to you based on current events. Or you can use it to help build a backstory. And to do that, I ask 3 questions. Or when I'm creating a character, I answer 3 questions, and I have a video about this on my YouTube. So definitely go and subscribe to the YouTube channel for tips like this. But the first question is, what would you kill to have or to know? The second question is, who wants to stop you from achieving that goal? Who in your life? And the third is, why are you an adventurer? Why have you chosen to live in the most high-risk occupation in Faerun or in whatever land you've chosen to set your game in? Because that is a choice.
Yeah,
that is a big choice, and there's got to be a reason. And a lot of that is because a lot of times you have people who are like, I chose the Outlander or the Sage background, but then they're like, I don't know why I'm even here. Like, why am I staying with this group? Well, if you can't answer what that objective is and why that's, like, for my bard, she needs the rest of the group to achieve her goals because she's a healer. So she can't do the maybe selfish or evil thing she wants to do without winning over people and making them like
And
her.
that's hard right there for Y
Yeah.
characters. And that's one of the things, even when we set up our campaigns, even if it's a one shot or, making sure why are we adventuring together, which is, Joe's character and mine, we've been together, we're brothers basically looking out for each other.
Yeah.
And Alvin is this adorable little simpleton, and he really is. He's just like the guy actually rolled a d20 to find out if he could catch a butterfly or not. He went running.
Adorable.
Oh, it was so adorable. It was the best. And
did he catch the butterfly?
it caught out of his grip just as he went to get it, but it guided him right where he was supposed to go. So it was fate.
Well, thank God
yes.
for that.
Little
Thank
miracle.
God for small blessings.
Yeah. But he's just this adorable, just sweet. You got to listen to the episodes and you'll understand. But and so we hired him on, and so that's how we got him with us. And then Fox's character Callie, she doesn't know what she's looking for right now, and she became slightly attached to this adorable little Alvin. And so she's basically become a mother figure or big sister looking out for him to make sure we don't screw him over, which Joey's character constantly does. Like, he's like, all right, you want to be part of my team? Well, you have to pay for your internship, which is 1 gold. And he's like, okay, intelligence 5, here's 1 gold. But we're working together. And then that's how our team came together. And now we're on this just quest, if you will.
As these things so often go.
Yes. As I said, it's crazy how that works. We just don't sit around and drink beer or ale. It's like, well, that was
We actually go somewhere. Shocking.
But it's making sure you have that connection, and that's one of the things when you're setting up. My best advice I can give to anybody is when you're setting up your campaign, whether you're the GM, DM, or you are the characters, making sure you won't be able to enjoy the game fully until all your characters have a reason to why they're together. Like, if I can do a mission by myself, why are you all here?
I think it's the biggest mistake that I see. Like, I hesitate to use the word mistake because I don't want to tell people that something they like is wrong. But for me, I definitely firmly believe that you will have more fun even if you're not playing an outgoing character. There has to be a reason that your loner character is coming out of the shadows to at least work with these 3 to 5 people that you're playing with. You have to find a reason to be there. And if you find yourself asking why you're there, the hard love or the hard advice that I have is it's probably on you to change or to figure out that question. You can't problems arise when those people tend to be like, well, you guys didn't ask me this, or you didn't, or they're playing the game like it's an MMO rather than like
if you're looking for a hack and slash,
role-playing game.
You're only going to get a hack and slash out of it. But if you're looking to get an actual to get emotionally involved and to learn and develop these feelings for your character and the game itself, you definitely need to have that set up. One of my favorite characters that I didn't come up with this, I wish I did. My good friend came up with his cleric. He based it off of health insurance. So he was a cleric that heals, and he said, hey, I will bring you back to life for free, but it's only going to be 1 health. However, if you give me X percentage of whatever you find, you'll get better healing abilities. And he's like, look, if you didn't pay for me to help heal you and you die, or you're getting ready to die,
that's on you.
Yeah, that's on you. He was health insurance, and that's how he came out. He didn't fight. He was very passive. He just let them do their things. But when they needed healing, he's like, yeah, right, here I am. And he would give them potions or heal them or do whatever he needed to do. And he's like, okay, you only get 1 health. Well, why do I only get 1 health point? You didn't pay me. So it was clever, and it was very out of the box thinking, and that was his intention, to make money off of adventures. And I'm like, that's great.
That's great. That definitely is great. I mean, you're certainly bringing something of value to the table in a high death profile job. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been so fun. Thank you to anyone new in chat who's here. Again, I'm Ann Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge around these parts. I do tabletop RPG content here on Twitch. I'm an affiliate of Eldritch Foundry, and as is Steven
I am.
and the Dads with Nerdy Ambitions podcast. So make sure you go and check them out, because not only do they have this awesome just general entry into different points of nerd culture podcast, but they also have this weekly adventure in Dungeons and Dragons for you to explore, that explores lore that was crafted especially for Eldritch Foundry. So make sure you check them out. There will be, if you go and follow at Eldritch Foundry on Twitter, there are links to the new episodes every single week that come there, but you can also just follow them directly at the Twitter that is listed on screen under Steven's name. Steven, is there anything else you want to plug?
I will always say, like I do on my podcast, as always, please like, subscribe, and listen and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. If it's on Apple or Audible, we always ask that people leave rates and reviews. We're on Instagram and Facebook.
It helps so much.
Yeah. At DNA Pod, Twitter at NerdDNA Pod. And if you want to come play Phasmophobia with me, because, Ann doesn't want to, we're on Twitch.
I mean, I'll play, but like, you have to understand that I will scream.
Oh, that's
in your
even
ear.
better. You're the kind of person I love to go to like Halloween and like haunted houses with, like not the real ones, like the fun ones.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitch at Nerd DNA Podcast, so I'm always down for gaming. So it's I really don't use it for anything. Like it is DNA podcast related, but I don't really use it. I have it though, but
hey,
we're everywhere.
It's fun to have fun.
It is,
and that's okay too.
And
awesome. Well, that's great. So everybody go check them out, and definitely give me a follow on the Twitter. Follow here if you haven't already, and over on YouTube there are most of the time weekly videos, but ever since I got my dog, there have not been weekly videos. There have been videos when my dog isn't peeing all over the house. There are videos on YouTube. Puppy life is very scary, but it has been 7 days since our last accident, so I'm very proud of him. He's a sweet.
Should do what I do with
boy.
my 1-year-olds. I just rub their noses in it and everything and tell them no and bad. I'm kidding. I really don't.
That doesn't work, Steven. You need positive They don't know what you're. Listen, that's a whole other focus for another day. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your evening. Get out there and live your quest life. Bye.